Right, so my name's Kit. I'm a Year 10 student. I study at Northstowe. I'm currently doing my GCSEs, so studying for my GCSEs. And I'm completing my week work experience here. And yeah.
Hi, I'm Sophia, I'm 16. I've just finished doing my GCSEs at Impington Village College and I have an interest in geography and urban planning, and this week of work experience has been really interesting and insightful for helping develop my knowledge of careers in those subjects.
My name's Kaylee, I'm 15 and I also just finished my GCSEs at St Mary's School, Cambridge. I'm planning to do the A-levels geography, biology and chemistry, and I'm here to complete my work experience because I have interest in geography, urban planning and town planning.
Hi, my name is Makar. I'm 15 years old and I study at Coleridge. I'm hoping to take A-levels in the future, and I'm interested in how towns and spaces can be made better for people living in them. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So sustainability is like the core of our planned proposal, and we're very keen on creating a sustainable environment including social, economic and environmental sustainability, and the use of the NPPF has been really useful in doing that, which is a national level planning scheme.
Yeah, so similar to the NPPF, we have the South Cambridgeshire Local Plan, which is local to this area, and I think the cover was created by Bonnie in 2018. And so within this local plan, we kind of focus on policy HQ1, which is the design principles, which link quite well into our proposal. And so by fulfilling all of these requirements, it kind of ensures the inclusivity and accessibility for everyone.
Right, so we've been recently informed about the 4 Cs, and we're just going to give you a brief overview of the 4 Cs before we go into a little bit more detail of it.
So the first one is character, and so I'll be doing a deep dive into the existing characteristics of Camborne High Street and how our team wants to improve it and make additions to it.
Then you've got connectivity, which is sort of looking at the links between places, so both outer transport connections to Cambridge, St Neots, various other places, but also how connections between people work within the sort of site and Camborne.
The next policy is climate, and within this we focus on addressing the challenge of climate change to ensure the development of Camborne High Street is environmentally sustainable.
And the last of the 4 Cs is community, which is just discussing the social impact that new infrastructure has on the people of Camborne High Street.
So here's about Camborne. Camborne is a town in Cambridgeshire that was built only 25 years ago. It's only 9 miles from Cambridge and it has a population of 13,000.
So you may be aware, you may not be, but this is the site proposed by the Harris Partnership around the High Street area. They've proposed some terraced housing and some flat buildings with shops underneath, making up 87 apartments and 30 townhouses. We have then had a look at this plan and sort of come up with some suggestions as to how it can be improved in guidance with the 4 Cs framework, the national policy framework, etc, etc. So there's a few things we've sort of tried to adjust, and then on the next slide we have a diagram that we've drawn out of some of the key features.
So we had a look at some of the issues with the original proposal from the Harris Partnership. We had a look at some of those and how they may positively or negatively affect the people of Camborne High Street. So we kind of identified these and rectified them in this little diagram. So to start with, we've got this section over here in the woods. We identified that the woods are just here, but they could be used in multiple different ways. You know, for community gatherings. So we put a nice path around here so people can experience the woods. We put a water fountain and some benches around just to add that community sense.
We also looked at the concept of underground parking, a ramp down here. This would obviously save a lot of space on the ground level, and although obviously it's very expensive to install, it would be a sort of long-term investment for the area, because you'd be able to sort of construct more shops, which would be able to generate more economic growth, which in the long term would hopefully balance out the cost of implementing underground parking.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of focus on the flats, And so basically, before in the Harris proposed plan, they had townhouses here, and right behind the terrace housing. But we kind of changed that into flats, and so that the townhouses originally would have had their view obstructed, and the fronts would be facing people's back gardens. So we kind of preferred, and we kind of compromised on the idea of having flats. And so our ground would be car parking, which would include especially car parking spaces for bigger families, for people with disabilities, and normal parking. And so we would have flats on top, and on the roof we liked the idea of roof gardens, which kind of maximise the greenery that we could include on the high street, and also like create a bigger sense of community. So by having amenities like barbecues, benches, maybe like small little like orchards that people could grow together. And so the flats here, we kind of follow the same idea as the Harris. And so we kind of had so underground parking, and then we would have ground floor shops. So because it's quite close to the Morrison, so we kind of made this a bit of a lively kind of area. And so we, as young people, we came up with the ideas of having a sports shop, charity shop, cafe, restaurant, a Boots, and a post office. And so we kind of gathered that all of these would cover what most people needed, and so it could cater to all kinds of ages. And so we would also have flats on top, and then we would have either roof garden or have solar panels to kind of help sustain for example, like street lights. And so we would also have public seating just outside the restaurant and cafe, and we would have public artwork or water feature.
Right, so we also decided as a group that there was not enough bike parking, so that's why we included bike parking here for customers of the shops and for people who live in the flats, and bike parking here and here. We decided that this encourages active transport, and we also made this road pedestrian only, which would link back up to the high street, and we decided that this would make active transport much safer.
So in here we try to include as many stalls of townhouses as possible, while still maintaining enough green space in order to maximize profit.
Yeah, so this is moving on to the fast C, so character. And so my first step would be to look at the existing characters that Cambourne has. So I think the most distinct ones would be Juliet balconies, the material of using render, bricks, and 2 to 4 story buildings. So we decided to incorporate the same idea into our own proposal, so then it kind of makes it all cohesive. And so we did our site analysis, so we went to Cambourne High Street and had a look. And so along the High Street, we kind of figured out which features were successful or unsuccessful. So for example, render, we kind of made the conclusion that it was unsuccessful because it requires repaints every few years. And usually developers or investors are kind of don't really want to provide the funding to repaint it every few years. So then that kind of results in a rundown image of the Cambourne High Street that we don't really want. So in our proposal, we wouldn't really include the material of render. But Juliet balconies are successful because they're decorative and they enhance natural light and ventilation. However, they don't really comply with the South Cambridgeshire Design Guide, which kind of states that all private balconies should be at least 3 meters squared. So that's why we would include something like this instead. Yeah, and then so the next kind of features we noticed was the variety of colours and materials that people used. And so we think that both of these were successful because they kind of use, so even though this elderly home, it was all the same property, but they kind of use different materials to add to the diversity and the liveliness of a Cambourne High Street. And so we kind of really liked the idea, and so we would also include that in our own housing and our flats as well. So Bonnie pointed this out actually, and when we were on our site analysis, Bonnie said that this kind of subtle setback using a garden space creates like distance between the building and the road. So that kind of creates a really good like distance between, making it safer, making it more like like welcoming and friendly as well. So we've also included that by incorporating driveways instead of having the terrace housing so close up to the road. So we'd have driveways giving a little bit of separation. Yeah. So I kind of concluded the different styles of housings by doing a census, so by doing a poll with this group, including Tom and Bonnie. So I kind of, I did these kind of pictures, and picture 3 did the best. And I think the key point was because it fits into the Camborne's High Street existing buildings. So as in the style is quite cohesive already with what already exists. So that's why this one. For apartments, it kind of showed a different result, and I think it would be because people nowadays quite prefer the modern and contemporary style of apartments, which kind of have the generous balconies, the floor-to-ceiling windows, and also the roof feature, which so we incorporated into our own proposals. So this slide was added after our talk with Mark Taylor, the access officer. And so we kind of talked about within housing, what kind of rules are really important. And so we used lifetime homes, which is the 16 design criteria. And so I pointed out these two, which would be bathrooms and windows and handle heights. And so I would prefer if developers kind of incorporated could possibly consider incorporating these kind of handles, maybe buttons or strings or something that would make it a lot more accessible. And same goes for like showers or just like open showers without having to get in and out of the tub. So the floor would maybe be slightly slanted towards the drain to make everything easier and more cohesive as well. And so for windows and handles, I kind of noticed that maybe in older buildings, they usually the feature of windows having to be pushed up, which kind of could become really inaccessible for, especially for example, wheelchair users. So I think by just having the simple design of just these kind of handles and these door handles, it makes everything more practical and more accessible. And so we also incorporated BREEAM, which is the assessment for non-residential buildings. And I think while reading the website, I think the most noticeable key element would be the net zero policy, which I think links quite well to climate, and kind of how we can make our shops or what we want to design in our proposal achieve the best kind of outcome. Within the Camborne High Street, I think the distinctive characters are really important because it's mentioned in the South Cambridgeshire Local Plan. And so in Chapter 5E, it kind of says to deliver a strong visual relationship between buildings that comfortably divide and enclose streets, squares and public spaces, creating interesting vistas, skylines, focal points, and appropriately scaled landmarks along routes and around spaces. So we kind of really like the idea of having people being active, so maybe an outdoor gym, basketball court, or table tennis, and I think that kind of creates a sense of community and enclosed space. But then for water features or public artwork, I kind of think it creates a really distinctiveness to Camborne, making it maybe more attractive, more lively, and more friendly.
Next we move on to connectivity. So the next few slides sort of separate each type of transport. So firstly I've focused on buses. As you can see, they take around half an hour to get from one destination to the other, and they're every 20 minutes roughly during the day. However, in the future, there is a proposed guided busway from Camborne to Cambridge, but maybe they should also consider expanding destinations to other towns such as St Neots or Royston. Trains-wise, I'm sure you're aware, currently there is no station. However, with East West Rail going through the planning phases at the minute, there'll hopefully be a station just north of the A428. And obviously then that is not very well connected to the town centre, so maybe they could sort of implement a little shuttle, tram or bus, something to take people up to the station. Cycling wise, it varies across Cambourne. So although there are some cycle paths around Cambourne, within the high street area itself, there's not really anything. There's no cycle parking either, so there's no security there. So it sort of discourages cycle users from reaching the town centre. So obviously they need to try and build some more. Cars and deliveries. So roads connecting Cambourne to other sort of large urban settlements such as Cambridge with the A428 and A14, both of which experiencing sort of upgrades in the last 5 years. However, within, for example, the Harris Partnership's side proposal, delivery access to some of these shops is rather restricted. The only road access is along the high street, in which they'd be blocking other traffic and other users from passing through whilst they made their deliveries. The lifestyle within the site again. So for example, people living down here, they've got quite a long way to drag their bin up to the main road. So just little things like that. So having more sort of pathways between the houses would reduce that time and distance. Also the lack of parking, I think there's around 30 houses proposed here, and nowhere near enough parking to cater for, say, some of the houses will likely have 2 cars each. So yeah, they need a more appropriate amount of parking for those. So as Kaylee said, we met with Mark Taylor, the accessibility officer, and these are a few things he sort of suggested could help with the connectivity side of things. So firstly, buses, they all have only one disabled user wheelchair space. So by installing 2 to 3, you'd allow sort of multiple users at the same time rather than having to wait for the next bus. Or if you've got 2 wheelchair users trying to go out for a day together, they'll want to get the same mode of transport. Secondly, trains, the ramps that take you from the doors to the platforms. If they were to store those on the train, then you're not relying on a platform guard, from meeting you at the station. So it sort of removes the risk of that. And then obviously if it's stored on the train, they can just put it down, get off, and then someone can take it and put it back on the train. As I said earlier, the accessibility between the new station and the town centre is poor. So by having a sort of shuttle bus, that would allow people that cannot make that journey on foot to use the station. And finally, pavements around the new development site should be smooth of surface and allowing wheelchair and blind people to safely use them. And then it goes on to climate.
So here we've talked about climate and what needs to be doing and what the current situation looks like. There's 4 points I want to get through. So first, no plant solar panels on housing and flats. Second, removal of trees lining the high street. Third, hedge road dividing development and Morrison's car park. It's a good idea for biodiversity, but it is important that the type of plant is hardy to ensure it grows well. And fourth, parking spaces near forest could damage the tree roots.
Okay, so with climate, a main part of our redesign is roofs of mixed-use buildings being gardens and solar panels on the roofs of townhouses. The solar panels will provide a long-term source of green energy alongside decreasing energy bills. This would make the proposal compliant with the Sustainable Homes and Vibrant Places section of the Council's corporate plan, which outlines the need for energy efficiency in housing. The roof gardens will provide multiple benefits, such as reducing flood risk, which is really important in built-up areas such as Cambourne, which have lots of impermeable surfaces, improving air quality and increasing biodiversity. So I've already gone through this bit, but I think it's really important that we create more cycle lanes and pedestrian routes to reduce the car usage, so therefore reduce carbon emissions and encourage sustainable travel. A key part of recycling that was not introduced in the initial proposal was water recycling, which is a lot more important these days as the climate becomes hotter in summers. So we introduced potentially having rainwater harvesting in water butts and grey water recycling. which would make the our proposal compliant with the council's corporate plan, which says that we will support households and businesses to reduce the consumption of waste while promoting reuse and recycling. And another part of the redesign which we thought was really important was that the proposal proposes to get rid of the trees that line the high street, and we think that this is really counterproductive, as these trees are really important for biodiversity and improving air quality, which is important especially around such a busy road, or will become a very busy road as Cambourne develops. And removing them will contradict the plan to be green to our core, which states that we will work with partners to ensure that proposed development plans safeguard and, where possible, enhance the local environment and nature.
Here I'll talk about what can we do to help disabled people, and here's some of the points I want to get through. So automatic drop curbs at crossings and flat junctions, ensure paths are wide, flat and well maintained, install more benches and shaded waiting areas, improve signage and directions, especially for people with visual impairments, provide priority sitting areas near High Street and parks, and according to South Cambridgeshire Local Plan 5, you can also provide safe and convenient access for all users and abilities to public buildings and spaces, including those with limited mobility or those with other impairments such as of sight or hearing.
So I'd like to shift the focus to the final of the 4 C's, which is community. I'd like to talk about the aspect of the lack of community gathering opportunities. So we found out that there's a minimum amount of shared community spaces, and we also thought that the forest was not being used to its full potential. So as I've explained before, our plan is to have a path going through here with a nice waterfall in the middle and benches around, just have that community gathering. And we also have over here paragraph 135 of the MPPF, which says establish or maintain a strong sense of place using the arrangement of streets, spaces, building types and materials to create an attractive, welcoming and distinctive place to live, work and visit. So we thought that the original plan was contradicting this statement, so we worked around it and we tried to find solutions and find ways to get those two to align. So for the final aspect of community, we've got the lack of consultation. Residents feel like they aren't given a say for their environment, for their area. So we've got a couple of solutions. We've got online forms, brochures, so that's just getting them involved in everything. We've also got the Greater Cambridge Youth Engagement Service, which is just people like us, we come together and we look for the issues and we give our say on it, which is quite useful for the proposal. And we find that this is a good aspect to look at and a good aspect to make sure it's perfected, because it gives the residents the satisfaction that they're contributing to their community.
Here I have talked about learning outcomes and basically what we have learned during this placement. So during this placement we've developed our skills in using Microsoft PowerPoint and OneDrive. We've learned how to create and structure slides clearly and how to save and access our work online using OneDrive. It helps us feel more confident in using digital tools for real-world tasks, not just schoolwork. We've also practiced writing in more formal tone and organizing our thoughts visually for presentation.
Thank you very much for your time and for listening, and if you have any questions, fire away.
Fantastic, thank you so much. It was really, what an amazing range of things that, before you came and started to look at this project, when you look at a building or you look at a piece of grass, you've captured a huge range of issues that a simple idea of let's just build something on there starts to embrace, from climate to community, obviously points around connectivity and character and so forth. And I thought your analysis was really good of what's right and what's wrong. The really exciting bit that you started to engage with is some of the trade-offs, and as planners we're we have to be masters of trade-offs. So underground parking or solar panel, underground parking and cost. What does that mean? Do we need more houses then to pay for the underground parking? That's a trade-off when we've said actually there's too many houses. Or solar panels and roof gardens. It's really interesting. You probably know Eddington in the centre. It's got the largest solar panel array almost in the east of England. It's got every rooftop has got, but it's meant they can't put roof gardens on there because they have to keep them secure and so forth. So hopefully it's opened your eyes as to what planning is doing. You know, the use of road space, the space between the buildings, should we set it aside for cycling or cycle parking, or what about the delivery vehicles and what about the buses and so forth? So it's been interesting. I studied geography before I then went to university to do planning, and you're all at slightly different stages. I did geography and chemistry, and everyone thought I was insane. It wasn't a good idea for me to do chemistry because I wasn't very good at it. It was fair to say, so I didn't get A level in chemistry. But the geography was an eye opener in terms of the kind of human dimensions that you touched upon, and the physical dimensions of not just the place but also design and so forth. So really, really fascinating. This is a live project, as you're probably all aware, and you will probably looked at some of the comments to get the feedback from some people in the community felt they've not been listened to and so forth. Part of our job, and hopefully it's given you an insight into what we do, is to funnel all of these kind of things down to firstly, depending on how engaging the developer is it a yes or is it a no? But more importantly, and particularly in the shared planning service and with our councillors, trying to say how can we make this the best set of compromise, best set of choices that we make? Because every choice in one direction has a consequence in another. And I try and the best illusion I can give, or the best example I can give, is one of the things that you've probably listed about 30 or 40 different things, haven't you? From accessibility to climate change and the policies, and green space and gardens and boundaries and so forth. If you put all of those into a kind of mixing desk, you've got a series of sliders, haven't you, on that mixing desk. The job of planners, a bit like the job of music producers, is to try and make a good song out of all of those kind of variables by adjusting the kind of sliders. And that's what we do day to day. Hopefully you've had a bit of a feel for some of that, and I just hope that you found it personally interesting in terms of what it's about. But has it cemented your desire to look at this as a career further? Clearly you're already pursuing an urban design objective, and we look forward to seeing you back when you qualify. By all means, give us a call. We're always on the outlook for talent. But for those of you perhaps who are still forming a view, has it piqued your interest in planning? Because this is just the surface, isn't it? We've got biodiversity, net gain, and all of the kind of conservation and heritage in the city and so forth. And some of the historic buildings that we're also trying to adapt to climate change and so forth, but big thick walls don't necessarily help you with Wi-Fi connections. So they're saying, but students won't come to us if we can't give them Wi-Fi or en-suites. Or it's a really interesting set of challenges. And I mean, I'm certainly very impressed with the quality of your presentation. It was really good. As I say, I hope it's been instructive. I bet you're going to bore your parents with, when you go back, every time you go past a building, it's like, oh, that garden should, why have we got gardens at the front? My children are horrified every time we sit in traffic, and I'm like, that's just like, Dad, please. But have you found it useful? I hope you found it
100%.
Yeah, definitely. It's like really interesting because when I first came, I didn't really know. I vaguely knew about urban planning or town planners, but I didn't really know the in-depth of how lengthy the process is and how difficult it is because you have to find the perfect balance between profit and like community. So kind of deciding, if it's like maybe 2 little houses, then the investors won't actually invest because it's not worth it. Yeah, but then it's also like catering to the community that is already here. But I think what we did as a group really well is that we made like a really good compromise. So I think like we all had our different opinions and ideas, but we kind of put out the best opinion that we could have, and so we put it onto that sketch, and so I think we worked really well together in that sense.
And oftentimes planners are the conveners of that conversation. You know, people come and oftentimes people say, oh, well, it's common sense, isn't it? You need to build them like, you need, simplistically, let's have just 5 houses on that plot, it would be much better. And we say, well, nobody's going to build it. You know, they've paid £15 million for that piece of land. They've got to make at least £15 million after spending £10 million building it and so forth. And therefore, we can either choose to see something happen or choose for something not to happen. But that arbitration, that kind of exploration of, well, what do we turn up and what can we turn down, is a really extraordinary set of skills that you need, that you develop as planners, that allow you to. Everyone wants to change the world, don't they? Actually, planners do change the world. This place didn't exist. This building didn't exist. The people's lives that are happening in Cambourne, from the people in the morning you see going to a school that didn't exist, children playing in play areas that did not exist without the planners making those judgments and so forth. So if you really want to change the world, this is the career to do it. And you'll be able to show your family as well after a period of time. Cambourne High Street has been a long-standing challenge, but I think your diagnosis of some of the both the opportunities but some of the difficulties hopefully has given you really good insight, and thank you, because the presentation is a really helpful reminder for us as well when we're going back to talking to the developer. Actually, this is what our younger people had to say about the project. Actually, quite a powerful tool to bring to bear. So thank you, and I've got to dash off unfortunately, but thank you very much for your commitment to this and for your presentation. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
And
thank
I
you for
hope
listening.
Thank you.
Bonnie and Tom, thanks to Bonnie and Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope that
Yeah,
they've
of
been
course.
really
Yeah,
helping
definitely.
inspire you to come back to us at some point.